Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Modern Open in Baltimore, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Shaheen Soorani. Now, usually when you're in the sideboard, you're talking about control decks. Or in Modern, you've kind of branched out. You've given up on the controls thing, and you've just done some wild stuff.
Right.
Whether it's, Avalanche Riders, all these wild things.
Yeah.
Now you're playing combo again,
Yep.
but we've seen this deck pop up, and you played it at your teammate, Pascal Maynard, played it at the Unified Modern Grand Prix.
Right.
And you were like, this is something I want to do?
Yes. I saw him winning, like, nonstop, while the rest of us were kind of being mediocre. I played Blue Eye Control at that tournament. I went 11-4 or 10-4, not too bad, but I wanted to come to the Open and actually, win the Open. And I knew that Control doesn't give me that opportunity. There's just too many bullets out there that just knock you down. You just can't beat them. And I really didn't want to have a mediocre showing here in Baltimore.
Sure.
So I used the wisdom of my teammate and good buddy Pascal, picked up the deck list, didn't really change a whole lot, but kind of like, I watched a lot of him playing, so I absorbed a lot of the play. I talked to him about a lot of plays. So I'm actually pretty confident with this deck, as confident as I possibly can be with all these cards I've never sleeved in my life.
Right. And this is a deck that I think got a lot of press at that Unified Modern event because it doesn't take a lot of cards from other decks. You lose, a Van Eldrazi or, a Tron or something like that.
Right.
But those cards don't really overlap with a lot of other decks. So it got a lot of press there, and we saw it in the hands of a lot of good players. And even at this event, people like Steve Rubin are playing this deck. So it's not just kind of a joke deck. This deck can put up results.
Right. I mean, we were so close to winning that tournament. We were 10-1 or 11-1, 7-1, and we lost 3 rounds in a row. Multiple winning ends. This deck, and it was basically on the back of this deck. I was doing okay. Brian was struggling with Death Shadow. But, this deck was carrying us to the finish line, and we made a few mistakes and kind of fell short. But this deck's the real deal. It wins through hate pretty easily. It only really Stony Silence stops it, even though you use the graveyard. It's super resilient through the graveyard, and you can use the stat to your advantage. They try to remove your graveyard with like a spell bomb. In response, you sack some more artifacts, pick back up another scrap trawler from the graveyard. You can just do so many things to avoid it. So that's why this deck is kind of more of the real deal decks of a joke deck, because you're able to push through hate. Whereas when you're playing Affinity and other linear artifact decks, they're having a much harder time to do so.
Right, so the name of the game, Crackdown Ironworks.
Yep.
This is the combo, and we get to talk about Scrap Trawler, which is a card that came about a couple sets ago, which really what put this deck over the top. We had seen this exist before in Modern with Empty the Vaults and all these other kind of 4, 5, 6 mana spells, but now you just get to do all artifacts and really churn through your deck and eventually play Emrakul.
Right.
So talk about how this deck works, the moving pieces that are kind of going on in it. Because when you look at this deck list, you're just like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, when I looked at the deck list, I still kind of don't know what's going on, to be honest. It just depends on how weird the matchup gets. But in a vacuum, if you're goldfishing or you're playing against Burn or something, it's pretty easy once you play it a few games. You start off with the early cantrips. You're cycling through your deck. You're playing Terrarions and Chromatic Stars, and you're cycling through your deck. You're also casting Ancient Stirrings to try to find combo pieces if you're not fortunate enough to have them. If you do have them and you have an Everflowing Chalice in your hand or Mind Stone, you play it on 2, which opens you up to turn 3 KCI, Clan Ironworks. If you have the KCI on 3 with 1 artifact land or 1 opal or something like that, you're able to go off immediately with Scrap Trawler, which makes it such a powerful deck, because even bolts and removal won't stop you if your hand is strong enough and you have enough artifacts in play and in the graveyard. So you play KCI on turn 4, you sack a couple artifacts, you play Scrap Trawler, but you sack the zeros first because you don't want to waste your Scrap Trawler triggers. Once it resolves, then you start getting to work. You sacrifice a 1, draw a card, because usually they have enter the graveyard, draw a card trigger on it. Returns back all your zeros, or a 0 when you put down a 1. You play the 0 again, you tap it for mana if it's an opal, you sack it again, you sack another 1. And as you're sacrificing these artifacts, you're going through your deck. Once you get to an Ichor Wellspring, then it brings all your 1s back. So it really is an infinite-ish combo. It's the worst infinite combo that's not infinite.
Sure.
Because you feel like it is, but your opponent's going to make you play through it because you're not actually showing a loop. You're just really getting value, going through your artifacts, going through your deck, and eventually You cast a giant hangerback walker to trigger your Sanctum of Ugin to get Emrakul. Or you cast I've had to cast a giant engine of explosives before with 7 counters, or try to put 7 on there, but only like 2 or 0 go on it to trigger your Sanctum to get Emrakul, and then you take a turn and you kill them. So it's a painstaking process for your opponent. It's a 10-minute win sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and you're not playing slow. I mean, I'm playing rapidly fast, but it still takes 10 minutes to really grind out through your deck to get to the combo pieces.
Right, and we've seen that at the event that had coverage. You know, this thing's just going over its pieces, looping through its graveyard. People are just kind of watching like, so what's happening here?
A whole lot of nothing until they get Emrakul. So.
But it draws a lot of cards, which you said, and that's something you like to do. So it's kind of right up your alley in that regard.
It feels blue, you know, I'm drawing more cards. That's the thing about Modern Control. You see people playing Glimmer of Genius on MTGO. That shows you how weak the card draw is in blue, which is embarrassing. So when it comes to a deck decision time, if your best draw spell in Modern for Control is Glimmer of Genius, we're going to need a little help from the unbannings. Jace,
looking at you,
Mind Sculptor.
Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Free Jace the Mind Sculptor, Twitter.
Now, you've gone over that before.
Yep.
So this deck, when you just kind of look at it, is just stars, Terrarian-esque abilities, and then your zeros, which are kind of the pieces that you say fuel the whole thing over again. And then you just go off. But what I like about this deck is it has a lot going on in its mana base, and you get to kind of do that because your deck's all artifacts.
Right.
So let's go over it. You've got Academy of Ruins. I think any deck that's kind of a linchpin of artifacts is going to want to have that card.
Yep, and as you're going infinite, and they kill Scrap Trawler, if you have Academy Ruins, it's a very clean, put it back on top of your library, get one more cantrip, draw it, play it again. So it makes you kind of invulnerable to it.
Right. Then we have the new one, which I like, Inventor's Fair. Out of Kaladesh, we've seen this pop up in Lantern. I think I've seen it even like in Affinity occasionally, but here is its real home.
Right, the Demonic Tutor on a land shines. It allows you to beat the 8 Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Cosmic deck by being able to tutor a piece that you're missing. If it wasn't legendary, I know that's a pipe dream for this deck. We would play a lot more. I play a lot more than 2. But beginning legendary, you can only play 2 copies, but it's easily the best land in the deck outside of Darksteel Citadel.
Right. Citadel, just very good with the Ironworks combo itself.
Yep.
And then, of course, you mentioned Sanctum, which is kind of the accelerate to Emrakul plan.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the old decks had to literally cast every spell in their deck to find it and then do that kind of thing. Grove of the Burnwells here is just the value because you don't really care about their life total.
Yeah. Actually, you sit, randomly good against Death Shadow. Every turn you give them a life and they're unable to cast Death Shadow. So it actually gives you a pretty good hedge against that matchup by being able to stop them from playing their best creature.
So you saw, the success of this deck in your teammates' hands. Did you think it would be a good choice in a non-unified format?
I think it'd be actually a better choice. In a unified format, one of the 3 players are always playing against Stony Silences and Hate, so you really have a 33% chance every round of running into it. I mean, I didn't see one team without one of those those Hate pieces. In this tournament, I don't feel like 1 out of 3 decks are going to be playing Stony Silence. There's going to be a lot of it, but not 1 in 3 decks because you have to play the weak control colors maybe, or you got to play like Death Shadow with it, which kind of fallen out of favor. A lot of people love Summer Denial version without the white. So like being able to dodge Stony Silence makes this a stronger deck in a full tournament. Also, it's just a very, very tough deck to play against. You really don't know what they're doing. I had an opponent with Nihil Spellbomb out trying to figure out when to use it. And it's just like you can't stop somebody with those cards unless you are an expert against that deck.
All right. So having familiarity with this deck is very important when trying to pick up wins.
Yep.
Now let's move on to the sideboard here because you got some real spice in here.
Oh, this is spicy ones.
We'll save those for last because you got the kind of usual suspects here. Nature's Claim, just a catch-all answer to everything. Ensnaring Bridge is kind of how you stay alive. Then you got the Aether Grid here.
Aether Grid, yeah.
Now I saw you win a match where they just had all kinds of hate out, like Rest in Peace, Stony Silence, things like that, and you just had double Aether Grid.
Yeah.
You didn't really care what they were doing.
Right. I mean, it allows you to beat those cards without having to handle those cards specifically. It makes you from a one-prong, one-dimensional deck into two-dimensional, which is really important because they're going to bring in all this artifact hate, where they can't stop you from amassing an army of artifacts, and it being an enchantment really dodges a lot of the removal. It's a card that I bring in every time against control, and you also bring it in against decks where their life total is questionable, and you can win in an alternative way if they have a lot of hand disruption. So it's really a good tool for the deck. It's borrowed from Affinity, but this deck, again, does it a little bit better because they still have to respect the combo, where in Affinity they're just trying to keep their life total high. So my opponent playing blue-white that match, he shocked himself on 1, went to 17, shocked himself again, went to 14, and the only reason I won that match is because he double lightning bolted himself, because you don't see your life total mattering when you're playing this deck.
And then all of a sudden this enchantment comes down, and then they're on a real clock.
Yep.
So more artifacts going on here. You got Defense Grid and Nile Spellbomb. Spellbomb obviously good against your graveyard decks and things like that. But Defense Grid, this is something you only see usually in super degenerate decks.
Yeah.
So, you know, I assume you're bringing it in here against Control. Is Control that bad of a matchup that you need something like this?
Control's the worst matchup because it packs all the hate enchantments I talked about, as well as if you play even against Grixis, they have like Color Guns Command, which is really, really insane against the deck. So you need it against Control. You bring in like 9 cards against Control, which is more than any other matchup. Every other matchup you bring in 2 to 4 cards because you don't want to shave too many of your combo pieces. The beauty is, against Control, you're not going to go for that early win, abrupt win on 4, because they're going to have Mana Leak, Spell Snares, Disenchant Effects, Stony Silence, Rest in Pieces. So you're going to have to go the long game with them, and that allows you to do it with Defense Grid.
Right, that makes sense. And now we have more cards from Kaladesh here. Makes sense, the artifact deck's going to use that. We got Padim, and we have Battle at the Bridge. What are these doing in here?
This card is the anti-burn technology. You can't beat an Eidolon the Great Rebel.
Yeah.
So you bring in the 4 Nature's Claim, but then this card is even better because it boosts your life total way up while killing it. You can dodge the 2 damage that comes from it. It's just a fantastic removal spell against burn that gives you, it can buy you 1 or 2 turns. They're not going to bring in like Skull Cracks against you or those kind of effects, so they probably only have the 4 Atarkus commands. So you're able to like gain a lot of life with it. Padim is like a card that we had 2 of. And then I cut 1 from here because it's kind of one of those clunky 4 mana spells, but it's for like Jund, the mid-range decks. It's for the decks that have heavy removal. And it's really tough to lose if you have that out early on. You're drawing extra cards every turn. And it again provides you that extensive late game so you can actually win without having to depend on turn 4. So against Control decks, your plan is late game. Against everything else, you're a turn 4 deck.
Now you mentioned Eidolon of the Great Revel as one of the cards that beat you. Harsh Menor, a new card from Amonkhet.
Oh yeah.
Is that a thing that's on your radar, or are you just kind of hoping you don't have to play against
Harsh
that
Mentor
card?
is tough. Is it mana abilities on Harsh Mentor or no mana abilities?
I'm not positive.
I don't think it's mana abilities on it, but it's still tough because you still have a lot of interaction. But I mean, any kind of hate bear that they play, even the white Eidolon, that Rhetoric, yeah, that guy must die too. So there's a lot of creatures that come out that either try to put you at 1 spell turn or make you pay life to do that. And Battle of the Bridge is one of those cards that is a wide net hitting, and I bring it in against any red or white deck.
All right, well, it makes sense. How's the deck feel for you so far? You're 4 rounds in.
Yep.
Way out of the typical Shaheen comfort zone, so I gotta know how it feels and how you're kind of doing so far.
The first round I kind of had the sweat dripping down the head when I'm trying to crunch these numbers with the mana. You're trying not to forget any triggers. There are no decks with more triggers than this. This deck is trigger happy. It is so many mana abilities that you're just trying to keep straight. You got to be careful not to draw before you draw from this card before you get back the artifact from Scrap Trawler. So there's a lot of panicking that I've done in the early rounds. I feel more comfortable with it now. It's just like at the Pro Tour when I play Zombies. Day 1 I go 2-3, and then day 2 I'm 4-1. I played Black Green. Day 2 I went 2-3. Day 2 I went 5-0. So like I need some rounds to kind of get the kinks out because, you know, about 15 years I played aggro. You know, 15 years ago I played it regularly. So I have to like, you know, whenever you play anything with a lot of early interaction, I got to get my practice in. So I'm feeling good now. At the beginning I was pretty rough.
Just getting settled in.
Yes.
3-1 so far.
3-1.
And if we've seen anything, Shaheen gets going at the back end of the tournament. So if you're still in contention, it's going to be very scary to look out for.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
All right, well, Shaheen, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all week long for the action here in Baltimore.